We're almost there, guys. Just a couple more minutes. Lindsay was in the front passenger seat, looking back at us with a gleam of excitement in her eyes, as the car bumped and rattled its way down the old gravel road. I read nervously from my handwritten notes, talking about our destination as the park drew closer. Burying my nose in books was a defense mechanism I had when I was anxious. I'd ramble about facts and figures when nobody else was interested. Tonight, though, everyone was listening closely in ominous silence. Clowntown Amusement Park closed since October 31st, 1997, partially as a result of the general public's growing disinterest in clowns. Admission steadily declined over a 3-year period until the owner, Milton Werback, declared bankruptcy and locked the gates for good. We'd been driving for the last 6 hours to reach the place, and the dashboard clock read 3 a.m. Everyone in the car was too exhausted from the drive to interrupt me, so they just listened quietly to my rambling. The moon was full in the sky above, giving the night an eerie feeling. The place employed more clowns and jugglers than almost any other single location in North America. I guess a few of them had nowhere to go after the park shut down, so several of them just hung around the remains of the place, squatting on the land and claiming it as their own. They even put up new signs reading, "Welcome to Clowntown," with the official population listed after that, as if it were a real town. Sightings of these squatter clowns persisted until September 20th, 2015, when police raided the park, arresting nearly a dozen former park employees, many of them still dressed in tattered clown costumes. They locked everything more securely, installed barbed wire fencing, and reinforced steel gates at the entry, but no one has maintained the property or tried to sell it. Rumor has it the Warback family is afraid to put it on the market, maybe because certain parties want to keep it as is, as if there are certain occupants who want to keep Clowntown for themselves. "Yo, that is so creepy," Noel said from the driver's seat. "Yo, if the police raids happened here in 2015, those guys would definitely be out of jail by now. I wonder if they came straight back here." I could tell he was freaked out, but since he was 3 years older than all of us, he didn't have much choice other than to act brave and pretend like he wasn't worried. "Hey, thanks again for driving us out here, Noel. Look, I know you're not really into urban exploration as much as we are, but it's really fun, you'll see." "Yeah, no worries. Just remember, you're all pitching in for gas on the way home," my older brother said from the driver's seat. I nodded, telling him I had a 20 in my wallet with his name on it. "There it is," my friend Brett said from the back seat next to me. "Look." The silhouette of an old wooden roller coaster stood out against the bloated orange moon hanging low in the sky. As we stopped the car outside the entrance, the four of us got out and looked up at the massive gate, which was locked, preventing us from exploring further. The giant gate was made to look like the face of a grinning cartoon clown, except the paint was flaking and algae-colored in places, making him appear gap-toothed, faded green, and plague-ridden. A sound of movement could be heard beyond that, but it stopped abruptly, as if whoever was making that sound had heard us coming. Then, in the far distance, I thought I heard a giggling sound, like laughter, but I wasn't quite sure. After it continued for a full minute uninterrupted, I chalked it up to the wind. "Yo, you sure we should be going in there?" Noel asked, looking really nervous now. "It's fine, we do this kind of thing all the time." In the far distance, I thought I heard a giggling sound, like laughter, but I wasn't sure. After it continued for a full minute uninterrupted, I chalked it up to the wind. "Yeah, you sure we should be going in there?" Noel asked, looking really nervous now. "It's fine, we do this kind of thing all the time. Come on, pop the trunk, I'll grab the gear." My brother opened up the trunk and I took out my backpack filled with urban exploration gear. Bolt cutters, water, rations, and a first aid kit. Not to mention a map of the park I'd found online. A giant statue of a grinning clown riding a unicycle and juggling greeted us just inside the gates. Beyond that was an empty stone water fountain and a ring of concessions all around, creating a large, circular area like a courtyard, at the center of which was a large, dry water fountain. All the shops were boarded and empty as we walked deeper into the park, heading towards the midway and the roller coasters. We didn't have any real plan, at least not yet. Our only real goal was to explore the abandoned park, but now that we were here, we were just wandering aimlessly looking for something cool. We reached the midway and walked past a carousel and a funhouse, a tilt-a-whirl and a salt and pepper shaker ride. There was an old pirate ship ride and lots of different concession stands and restaurants as we explored, going deeper and deeper into the quiet heart of the amusement park. There was garbage and debris littered everywhere, burnt-out light bulbs and broken windows, but still I could imagine what the place had been like when it was open. It felt alive somehow, as if the spirit of Clowntown had never truly left. And that scared the hell out of me. "Did you hear that?" Brett asked from beside me, looking over his shoulder nervously. "No, what?" "Sounded like footsteps." "Are you sure you didn't hear anything?" I shook my head and we kept walking. Noel and Lindsay were up ahead of us. The two of them were talking and didn't seem to have heard anything either. As we kept moving toward a Ferris wheel up ahead, I heard the sound Brett had mentioned. There were soft, squeaking footsteps coming from behind us. Someone was following us. And it sounded like they were wearing big, floppy, squeaking clown shoes. Grabbing Brett's arm, I ran up ahead to tell Noel and Lindsay. "There's someone here. Somebody's following us," I said when I'd caught up with them. "Let's get the hell out of here." Before they could say anything, I heard a sound like a light bulb breaking from behind us. We all turned to look in that direction, but saw nothing except darkness. The four of us froze in horrified silence, waiting. Then another breaking glass sound came from the right, and then the left. We stood huddled where we were, listening to the sounds from all around us of breaking light bulbs, each one being smashed from a slightly different direction, as if we were surrounded by dozens of people. The full moon provided enough illumination that we hadn't used our flashlights up until this point. But now I pulled mine out and shone it in the direction of a sound like glass breaking underfoot. A few feet away in a narrow alley, I saw the silhouette of a clown creeping up on us in the darkness. When the glow of my flashlight hit his face, he hissed and ducked away, his eyes reflecting the light like mirrors. He disappeared behind the nearest concession stand, but a terrifying afterimage of him remained in my memory. His faded, ripped clown costume, his grinning face painted with soot and blood, feces, who knew what else. "What the fuck was that?" I screamed. A second later, I heard a scurrying sound like movement from even closer near my feet. I spun around and shone my flashlight into the shadows, but there was nothing. The sound came again from the other side, and I turned and caught sight of a small, emaciated clown, his clothes tattered and torn. He was almost naked except for a dog collar and a few scraps of filthy clothing, which were covered in red polka dots. He was moving on all fours like a feral dog, snapping his teeth and barking at us. "Yeah, let's get the hell out of here," Noel yelled, and we started to run as fast as we could away from there, the yipping clown dog chasing after us with more speed than I would have ever thought possible. At first I thought someone would stop us in our tracks, that there would be someone on the cobblestone path blocking our way, but there wasn't. We escaped the midway area, and I felt a horrible stitch begin to grow in my side as we bolted from that section, heading back towards the entrance gate. I kept taking sideways glances at every corner, wincing at every movement caused by a gust of wind, at every sound of crunching glass underfoot, horrified of what was chasing us in the shadows. "Why did you bring me here?" my brother was screaming. "I hate clowns!" The moment he said that, all of the lights in the park turned on at once. Carnival music began to play, distorted and slowing down and speeding up intermittently. Light bulbs glowed over bright and popped as we ran past, showering us with glass and sparks. As we turned the corner, we found ourselves in the courtyard at the entrance. A giant cobblestone circle surrounded a fountain with the juggling clown statue at its head. Shops and concession stands surrounded this courtyard, and we ran past them towards the gate, where we had cut a hole in the fence just next to the entrance. But as we approached, we saw shapes beginning to emerge from the shadows all around. They stepped out from the stores in which they had been hiding and revealed themselves. Dozens upon dozens of clowns in ragged, tattered clothing. Their faces were painted with makeup that was crusted, flaky, and peeling with age. A few of them brandished knives. Others held pieces of rebar, rusted pipes, and broken bottles. "We told you not to come back here," one of them said. "We're not leaving this place. This place is ours." The The four of us were only teenagers, but I realized in our dark clothing, with our faces drenched in shadow, that we looked like cops to them. Coupled with the fact that from what we had witnessed so far, they were severely mentally unstable, it didn't seem like we would be able to convince them otherwise. They thought we were here working for the police, maybe even doing reconnaissance for another raid. I pulled down my hood, revealing my face. "We're not cops, we're just kids. I'm sorry, we were just looking around. Please, we'll go." At least, that's what I wanted to say. But the words caught in my throat as the clowns began to come toward us from all angles. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. And then all hell broke loose. One of them came up behind Brett with a knife in his hand. I looked over to see a giggling, emaciated clown sawing gleefully at his throat with the blade. He held back Brett's head, and a fountain of blood shot out, erupting into the air. The clown stuck out his tongue and caught drops of red like snowflakes, before turning to me next. He licked the blade and began to swing at me. As I ducked and dove out of the way of the clown's knife strikes, I felt sharp stings where the steel found my skin through the dark clothing I wore. The adrenaline dulled the pain, but I would find later that the cuts went very deep. Noel and Lindsay were fighting off a couple of their own attackers, both large, vacant-eyed jesters with torn red and black clown outfits, covered in a myriad assortment of rips, patches, and tears. Brett was bleeding out on the ground, looking pale, with his lips starting to turn blue, as his blood ran out and formed a spreading puddle around his body. His hands had been up at his neck, clutching the gaping wound there, but now they fell limply to his sides, and I saw he was no longer breathing. "You're next," said the clown nearest me, seeing my eyes looking down at my best friend's dead body. "You killed him," I said, unable to look away from the blood and from his pale, lifeless face. He attacked me again with the knife. I was ready for him, though. In the few moments I'd been able to rest, I had pulled the heavy bolt cutters from my bag. They weighed around 10 pounds and were made of hard steel. As he lunged at me with the knife, I spun with all the force I could muster, corkscrewing my body and swinging the bolt cutters like a baseball bat. The exposed steel end of them made a sickening sound like a porcelain dish full of meat being broken. The clown's teeth exploded from his mouth in a spray of blood, and he fell hard to the ground, unmoving. "Run!" I screamed as the rest of the inhabitants of Clowntown stood gaping at the heaped remains of their leader. The rest of us darted towards the fence, only to find the way blocked by a hulking 6.5-foot tall clown with hard, mean-looking eyes. He carried a giant monkey wrench which he slapped against his palm menacingly, stomping toward us from the shadows. Suddenly the barbed wire atop the fence didn't look nearly as intimidating as it had before. Noel, Lindsay, and I raced for the chain-link fence near to our right and started to climb, just as the crushing mob of clowns surrounded us at the bottom. The rusted steel barbs cut into my skin painfully as I climbed over the fishhook steel coils at the top. My clothes got stuck and my flesh did as well, but I just pulled and tore myself free, not thinking of the consequences, only needing to get away from that place, away from those horrible, terrifying clowns. I dropped down hard on the other side, eating a face full of dirt and knocking my teeth out of alignment. Pulling myself up quickly, racing for the car at the other side of the road, I felt blood pouring from my mouth and from a dozen other wounds all over my body. By the time we got inside our vehicle, we were almost surrounded by them again, as they poured out through the hole in the fence we had made. They were bloodthirsty and angry, wanting revenge for their dead leader. As the car reluctantly started, they banged on the hood and smashed the windows, trying to pull us out to face our punishment. Noel slammed his foot down hard on the gas, and we drove off at the last possible moment, looking back in shocked horror at the group of them standing in the road. None of us said anything for a while. We just drove, panting and terrified, covered in sweat and blood, fresh bruises and wounds that will last a lifetime. And we were the lucky ones. So take this as a warning. Don't ever visit the abandoned amusement park called Clowntown. It was closed for a reason. The story was written by me, and a variation of it previously appeared on the Dr. Nosleep podcast. If you want to hear more stories written by me and other great authors, check out his podcast and YouTube channel, where he also shares high-quality horror animations and audio works. Links can be found in the description. Today's video was supported by patrons like Mark from Earth, Crimson Muse, Joy Burton, Diane Showers, Mark Sewall, Cheryl James, Pick Your Sticker, Teddy Dog, Clue 404, Mamakato, Dante Kincaid, Zarin Ray, Angela Donovan, Larry Ann 50, Devin Kyle, Timothy Baird, Ajeti, Bert Turner, Bajani Espinal, Michael Pierce, Big Joe, Carrie Harkonnen, and LaDonna Spivey. If you'd like to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jordan Grupe Horror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward. And if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in the next Hollow's End story. Characters have already started appearing in stories, so check that out if you're interested. Links to join are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great night.